Hurd, and I am a registered Maine guide. I've been doing this since my youngest child graduated from high school. But actually, I did it unofficially long before that. I grew up right here in Grand Lake Stream, right here on the river. And my dad built canoes, so I always had one at my disposal. And I loved to fish, and I loved growing up here. And so to guide was just sort of doing what comes naturally to me. And so today I'm going to walk you through a guide's lunch. So I carry in my canoe my wood bag, my hook here, which I will pull out as needed. It's a new bag. That's why it's not as dirty as last year's. You would have seen a very black one. Okay? And so I carry those in the canoe with me, as well as the lunch and all of that, which we'll get to. So actually the first thing we do, coming ashore to a lunch ground on any of our lakes around here, Big Lake, Grand Lake, Wabash, whatever, we would land. I'd get the people out. Typically I have 2 people in the canoe with me who have fished all morning and caught a fish or 2, or 3 or 4, and we've usually got a couple here for lunch that we plan to cook. So typically I would clean fish at this point, but since it's spring and the bass are still asleep primarily, we cheated a little, and we have some that were caught last season that we're going to cook. They were in the freezer. So I would get my people out, I would come up here, and I would get the tablecloth on and get them seated, and we want them to have a little bit of something to munch on. They're hungry, they've been in that canoe all morning. So I'm going to set the table and get them some, a little bit of cheese and crackers or something for them to eat. And we're going to cook hamburger today. And we'll set this up. And one place for me. Now at one time, of course, most of my relatives are guides too. My cousin tells the story about the man and woman he had. He fished with them all morning, and he was doing this, and he was setting up the places for lunch, and the woman looked at him and saw the 3 places, and she said, "Oh, we're not accustomed to eating with the help." He said, "Well, that's not a problem." So he picked up their 2 plates and cups and everything, and he took it down on the shore, and he set it up on some rocks. And she said, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, "Well," he said, "you see that picnic table?" He said, "I built it. I loaded it on my canoe, and I brought it to this spot." And he said, "So I plan to eat at that picnic table. Now, if you would like to join me, you are more than welcome to." So needless to say, they did all eat at the picnic table, happily, I do believe. But that's just kind of a funny little story. But anyway, so I want these people to have a little snack. So traditionally, we get out some pickles, because pickles have, if I can open them, salt in them. And if they've been out in the sun all morning, they might need a little of this to get them hydrated again. So we'll put a fork in there, let them have some pickles. And we'll have a little cheese somewhere. Sort of get them all happy and set up and munching on their stuff. And then I commence to cooking them a little fish for an appetizer. You know, a lot of people are simply catch and release, and we like that, and we encourage that sort of behavior with our fishing because our resource. We protect that, but the bass, most lakes allow one per person. And if they indeed would like to catch and eat something they caught, it's great for them. It's good fun. It's a lot of people have never had a bass before, and especially cooked this way. And so we like them to do that. So they get a little excited about it. So I'll put this stuff down here near the fire and we'll start a fire. So this is your good old birch bark, which, I pick up birch bark all winter. It blows off the trees. You shouldn't be peeling the bark off a birch tree. You'll kill it. But if it blows off, or you can peel some off a fallen one, that's the best thing to start a fire with. Great. So this goes on the bottom. For kindling, cedar's probably the best. Whatever you use, make sure it's dry. I've got some cedar here. And building a fire, you gotta have it breathe. So you want to place things, not all piled up on top of each other. You just gotta spread it around a little. These sticks are cedar too. That's my hookaroo. I don't want to burn that. Little hide wood, get it going. There, with any luck, that's gonna go. Easy that bark burns. That birch bark's got some oil in it. Pan of oil on there to start getting hot. So that starts getting hot. And then we're gonna make some Guide's coffee today. So we want that to start boiling. And all right, so we got our fire going, we got our oil heating, we got our water, and it's gonna heat, and that'll, once that boils, we'll have some coffee. Usually it's ready by dessert time. So, gotta get our fish next. You can be my sports.
All right. And then the one down below it that Mike has, Mike talked about.
There, as it gets going, you just kind of add a little more to it here and there.
Do you have any funny guiding stories?
Oh, there's all kinds of guide stories. You know, when you work with people, it's wonderful, first of all. And I work with people that come from all over the country and come here, and some know how to fish. They're great fishermen. Some have never fished before in their lives, and some fish once in a great while. But they're all funny and fun to be with. And I always say, if I went to New York City, I would certainly be a fish out of water. I don't understand, and a lot of people come here and don't understand. I had somebody in the canoe once who, it was a big boulder like this, but it was out in the middle of the lake, you know, as oftentimes you see. They looked at that and they said, "You have such big boulders here. Does that one go all the way to the bottom?" Well, I kind of took a deep breath, and in my mind I could think of several responses like, "Oh no, I just anchored that one out here this morning," but anyway, I just said, "Well, yes, it does." And we left it at that. But people, there's a lot, and you know, the beaches, like, there's great beaches on the lakes, Big Lake, any of the lakes around here, and we know they were created naturally, but people will, and it's more than once they've said, "Well, if you can't drive to this spot, how did they truck the sand in here?" And I couldn't believe that they didn't realize that that was natural sand, and we Mainers know that that's natural sand. And so you have to, you don't ever laugh at people, but you can laugh with them. And you know, the best thing about this job is, number one, I love what I'm doing, but to show somebody, you know, your piece of this great country, this great county of Washington County, and this piece of Grand Lake Stream, you show them and you want them to love it too. And you end up giving them a pretty good day, is what you end up doing. And that's a pretty rewarding thing. So at this point in time, a lot of my clientele, course, this year is a strange year. I don't know that they'll all get here or be able to, but they come back year after year, and they want to do it again and again, and it's great fun, and sometimes they end up laughing at me. We had it was a beautiful day last summer. I was down on Big Lake with a couple I'd been with several times, and I was cooking, not paying a lot of attention, and the lady said, Sue, is that our canoe? And sure enough, I hadn't pulled it up very far on the beach, and a little bit of breeze had come in, and that canoe had drifted right off. It was out there. She said, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, you're not going to do anything. Just keep an eye on the fire. And I threw my boots off and went swimming and came back with it. And we were fine, but they had a story, some stuff that they could laugh about. Almost lost the canoe. But it's okay. Things happen. You know, and you are responsible for people's safety out here, so you don't want to take it too lightly, but at the same time, it's good to be able to laugh and have a good time out here. See if that oil's getting it all hot yet. Just sometimes yep, she sizzled, so. Up pretty fast, nice golden brown.
So I was a vegetarian for 23 years, and the first thing that got me to be not a vegetarian was actually fish. And so almost any single meat that is out there in the world, like, there's a very good chance that I have not eaten it ever.
But fish you like?
I do like fish, yeah.
Great.
It's always surprising when I tell people, they're like, you've never had this thing that they think is a very common thing, and me being like, eh.
Well, I find a lot of people have not had, bass before. And I say, well, you don't, they say, well, I don't normally like fish. But this is a very mild, not a strong tasting. And you also tell them it doesn't get any fresher. They just caught it within the last couple hours, and here we are cooking it. Our customers here.
What's that?
Yeah, serve some fish. Yes. And this typically, now these two people don't look very excitable, but typically the people I take out get real excited when I put that fish out in front of them. And they feel like, I caught this. And they taste it, and they love it. They love it.
They usually have been flipping around 30 minutes before.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Usually whatever. My father, one of his famous sayings was, he never said much. He was very quiet. be guided and guided. I'd seen a lot of people, and they'd always rave about the food. Oh, how did you cook this? Oh, it's so wonderful. He'd shake his head and he'd say, you know, you could feed them particle board out there and they'd still think it was wonderful. Because it's typically not about the food itself, it's the setting.
Burn chicken.
Whatever. But you know, they really, it's a great part of the whole day, the food. So, okay, so we've served them the fish, and we've got the coffee water on, and the main course is going to be hamburgers today. So, and I'll encourage them to use the hand sanitizer before they eat.
So what are we doing now?
Okay, so these hamburgers I'm going to put on a broiler.
What has changed about Grand Lake Stream over time?
Very little. That's what, I mean, truly, I mean, the population has gone down since I was a child. I mean, growing up here, I went to school here through the 6th grade. And
Thank you.
it was actually, oh, a piece for the guy. Thank you.
It's good.
Came out okay. So there's less people now, and it's kind of a shame, but there really isn't anything to hold young families here. I mean, there's the mill to work in, but if you really want to be here, though, you can carve a life out of. If you want to guide summers, you can teach the rest of the year and have most of your summer to guide. You can caretake camps, you can become a carpenter, there are many things you can do if you truly want to piece together a career here and live in Grand Lake Stream in Washington County. And what has changed, I don't know. When I was a kid, there was no roof on the hatchery. So many times as kids, we always used to run up and down the middle of the hatchery and try not to fall off into the pools. We fell off into the pools quite often, or do it at night. There were no lights, and without falling into them. But it was a good place to grow up. We would oftentimes put in at the dam on an inner tube and spend the day floating to Big Lake.
It's quite a journey.
It was. Well, I mean, this stream is 3 miles, and pretty good way to spend the day. Some fresh oil in. Over there. These sticks are they're called hookaroos or hook'em sniffies, or it's just cut from from a branch, a green branch. And they last forever. They're multi-purpose. You can use this end to stab things and tell if your meat's done yet, or, and you know, you lift everything with them. And you notice the meat, I cook in front of the fire, not on top of the fire. Just lean it. And it browns right up. If you cook it on top and that grease drips down, you just get a lot of smoke and burning. You get all the carcinogens. So, and most of the real heat, once you get a fire going, is coming out from the front anyway. So that's how we cook hamburger, steak, chicken, pork chops, any of the meats we cook out here. We cook in front. And let me grab some potato and onion. Oh, don't really have to peel them usually, just get spots off them. And then you just cut them up in chunks, kind of random.
What's one of the best wildlife sightings you've gotten so far?
Oh gosh. Well, moose are always people's favorite, I think. And one time I had a lady who was part of a bigger party, and my job was to pick this lady up. She was elderly and not in very good health, but she was going to meet her party for the cookout lunch. So I picked her up around 11 o'clock, and I was supposed to give her a little bit of a tour of the lake and get her to lunch. And she was lovely, and she was from Georgia, where they don't have many moose. So she wanted, above all else, to see a moose. And I said, oh, Edna was her name. It was one of those days, it was about 90 degrees, and here it was nearly noon, and not when you'd expect to see a moose at all. But I said, I will take you to see some moose habitat. And so we went up Little Musquash Stream, which is beautiful, and there were ducks and blue herons, and you know, there was wildlife. It was a beautiful day. And I came around one of those corners, and in the middle of the stream was this raft. Oh, probably one of the biggest moose I've ever seen in my life, laying right in, you know, it was hot, and there he was, just laying right in the middle of. And I said, Edna, get your camera. And she turned around, and that moose, it was just like he knew he was putting on a little show for us. And he stood up, and he turned, and he shook the water off his antlers, and he kind of just did a slow walk up onto the bank and looked back again at her. And oh, it truly was the best moose sighting I'd ever seen. So sometimes, you know, when you least expect it, because usually when people say they want to see a moose, you can't pull it out of. So that was a good one. All right, so you wait with this potato cooking. You wait till the oil is hot again, and I'm just using a small frying pan today. people who are going to eat a lot of potatoes, use a bigger frying pan because you don't want to cook more. You need to just cover the bottom of the pan with potatoes. That's about right.
So Robert says to Jeff, he says, you want to go.
So, if you could give one piece of advice or word of inspiration to the kids out there, what would it be?
I would tell them to do what they love in life. If they're going to pick a career that involves being back here and staying in Washington County, I think that's wonderful. They should do what they love. And if it means going to New York City and living in the city, and they should never feel bad about leaving us behind. It's always here. So either way, do what you love.